Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcoin Guides, bringing you my guide for God of War Chains of Olympus on God difficulty. Today we're doing part 6, entitled The Temple of Persephone. Sorry, I was having a hard time thinking for a second. I was like, wait a minute, where the hell is Charon? Like, did we get past him already? But then I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, he shows up like after the first fight in this section. So, if you die in this next area, you have to do that whole climbing thing over and over again. I would know because I had to do it over and over again, and it wasn't very fun. So I recommend, before you come in here, having max Efreet magic, because you're gonna have these two big green guys that are gonna spawn. You can use the gauntlet to break out their shields, which is nice. You can also use the parry mechanic, and you can parry them themselves. So keep that in mind. You can parry these guys. And the reason why I want max Efreet is because I want to at least get rid of a lot of these harpies and do a ton of damage, or like a good amount of damage on these berserker guardian dudes. By the way, you can parry the slam attack too, so just remember, both attacks can basically be parried, and don't fret too much. It is a very annoying fight, yes. If you have max magic, you could use the Efreet to kind of like break off the shields and do a ton of damage. Now, the other strategy that you could theoretically use is a parry from the harpies. But I wouldn't recommend parrying from them because they just are so obnoxious and annoying with it that it's just, yeah. In my opinion, it's not as viable, especially with the Guardian guys being there. But, you do you, of course. I'm just saying in general that parrying the Guardian guys is just a tad bit probably easier than parrying the Harpies. So this is Charon. Charon is actually relatively a lot more simple than what people might have first thought of, especially me. And when I say people, I should just more specifically mean just me. But I do feel like some people have a hard time with him in general, but he's actually stupid simple. Until like the third or so phase. That's when he starts to become kind of more of a struggle. So the beginning phases, I recommend just going for parries. Just use square parry. Don't worry about triangle parry. To me, it's not fancy enough. Well, on top of that, it just doesn't seem like it's ever, fast enough or works as well. Always try to parry those balls back. Now, they do have timing on them, but the timing, at least for the balls, if you're far enough away, is not too difficult to kind of get down. It's basically just like, block, throw, block, throw. Like, basically, like, throws now, he's going to throw another one. Like, after he gets hit, he's basically just throwing another one. And that's kind of the idea that it's going for. Sorry, I got to close things out because my computer likes to bother me, later when I'm doing videos. So, that's just how that is. But once you get him down to half health, he's just going to, fuck off and come over here. Break it with the gauntlet. Easy. And now we're in phase 2. And he's not going to really do much different. He's just going to go for, like, the same basic parry attacks. Like I said, I recommend going for the square attack. That way you can kind of just re-parry. And the fun thing is, with the parrying of his scythe attacks, is that he'll do something like this. And you can hold block, while you're doing a parry. And then still probably get that extra parry off from holding block, which is actually pretty fun. And you can kind of almost get away with holding block here too. I typically kind of do it sometimes. I don't think it works like 100% of the time, but it tends to kind of work a lot of the time. And then usually after the fireballs, he tends to go into this thing where you can kind of just sort of stun lock him for a bit, where you can kind of just keep hitting him and do like a full combo or two. And that's always what you kind of want to go for damage at the very least. Of course, his own fireballs do practically like a ton of damage to him anyway. Now, dodging the Charon mask itself, which is basically what his phase 2 equivalent starts to use. Also, that can be dodged practically right before it hits you, but I recommend jumping over it. I don't recommend dodging it. I recommend just jumping over it instead. I'm kind of a little bit of a risky turd and just tend to forget about things. And somehow, I blocked that. So, I'm not going to confirm or deny if that's blockable or not. I feel like it kind of is, but I'm not 100% sure. And yeah, when it comes to fireballs, real quick, I do want to say again, just on repeat, that I recommend staying at a good enough range, at least a roll distance away from him. That way you don't get screwed over by like an accidental fireball that comes in too fast, so to speak. Okay, I guess I said third phase, but I guess that's basically the second phase, whatever. So, yeah, the slam attacks, just jump over them. He has a very somewhat easy prompt to kind of just catch. He's got a somewhat easy enough telegraph for it. He'll like charge up and then go for a slam. It takes him a good while to do it. So yeah, just jump it. He does it like 3 times, like once, twice, and then slams again. And typically that's relatively simple to kind of avoid. Now, for these fireballs, though, these ones are a little harder to kind of be able to throw with the holding block mechanic. And as you can see, they're a little harder to throw with parries in general. I don't know if I took damage or not. I wasn't paying attention, but at the very least, you can parry, you know, the first and second one, or at the very least, the second one. So I wouldn't worry about the damage on that one too much, because I don't think it's really that bad in the first place. And yeah, somehow we killed Charon. All right, cool. the ferryman of the dead. So yeah. Then again, this is, you know, God of War, and it doesn't matter. Anybody can basically die. That's just how it is. So now we're going to be fighting these satyrs. You can use Charon's mask. It's not a bad tool. It's, in my opinion, it's a lot better than the fireball itself. I just never really found the fireball that useful. But you know, the Charon's mask is pretty decent at stunning. Even for like a level 1 magic, it's not too terrible. And the benefit of this area specifically is the fact that you don't have to worry about magic limit. You can clearly have infinite magic here, and that's something, you know, that they recommend you probably do. But of course, I tend to forget about things like that from time to time, and just continue to hit guys, because that's what I do. Also, the gauntlet against the satyrs at this point is pretty damn strong. Something else I recommend doing. However, if you're going to go for parry, I recommend using parries from the blades rather than the gauntlet. I don't feel like the gauntlet's parries are that good. I feel like, personally, for me, I find the square parry of the blades to be a lot better and a lot more effective and faster, and just has better animations. And all that other fun junk that I tend to think about that I'm sure most people probably don't, unless they're a speedrunner. Then, of course, they think about that stuff. Alright, now we're getting into the real action here. And this is the Tower of Persephone, and it's essentially a gauntlet. That's practically what it is. It's only got like 5-6 rooms. I think like about 5 or 6, yeah. I'm counting from my deaths, knowing that I died in every single room, so that's kind of a good way to figure that one out. But yeah, this is your checkpoint, so if you die in this area, you have to start this entire room all over again if you die in this next room here, this first fight. So, first fight, I think it's going to have Sabertooth, like 2, I think, spawn, and then after that's going to be satyrs with fireballs. You could use the fireball satyrs to your advantage to kind of like do some extra bit of fire damage. However, I recommend not doing that. And I also recommend maybe not using Gauntlet. I'd say just keep your blades in handy, because I feel like blades are a little bit easier to kind of just roll out of from your combos. I feel like it's easier to kind of break away from your combos if need be. And then I feel like with, you know, the Gauntlet, yeah, it does a lot of damage. It's pretty damn strong. But unless you're fighting just a Sabertooth by himself, I recommend just not using the Gauntlet. I feel like for the Sabertooth by himself, Gauntlet's great. But if you have satyrs in the room that are throwing fireballs, just go for them and deal with the Sabertooth if he comes near you. Just go for parries if he comes toward you. And every once in a while, you know, Charon to kind of stun, just in case you need to get yourself some breathing room, because that's how this fight is. Like, it's a lot of, like, really small rooms, and I recommend, if you're going to be going for any type of magic, the one that you definitely really want to go for is Charon, surprisingly. I know that's weird me saying that, but I feel like Charon's is a bit better. I know I wasted all my magic, but at this point I didn't really care, so I recommend not wasting all of it, but it doesn't really matter what you do, you know. Just try to survive. That's kind of the idea, of course. And for me, though, I feel like going for the satyrs first is a better thing to do, because once they're gone, then you don't have to worry about the damn fireballs, and then you can kind of focus on the Sabertooth himself. However, you know, the Sabertooth, of course, can be trying to attack you, and you can parry him. You can throw back the fireballs, but I feel like it's a lot easier to deal with Sabertooth parries than it is the fireball parries. But that's just my own skill level coming into question. And at this point in time, the tower is going to give you like tons of orbs. You're going to be getting like tons and tons of orbs. So you should have enough at the very end of this to level it up. And if you haven't leveled up Gauntlet by this point, which I think I eventually do level up to level 3 sometime, maybe this room, that's a good time to get to level 3, because you're going to get plenty of orbs to kind of do that with. So this next area, I died here a lot too. This place just sucks. It goes on forever. I wouldn't worry too much about going for the quick time kills for satyrs. It's kind of pointless. Unless you really just want to do it for the hell of it. Just, yeah, I don't really recommend it. But yeah, these Medusa head things, they do have the tendency to kind of stone these guys. That can work. It's just that it's not that effective. It doesn't last long enough to really be that useful. So what I do here is I break the first Medusa statue face thing, or Gorgon, sorry, whatever it is. I break the first Gorgon statue, and after that I kind of just hang back here near the door, because enemies can spawn behind you, and that's kind of why I stay back here. Typically, there's only like 3 satyrs on screen, 3 to 4 satyrs on screen at one time. They never seem to spawn more than just like a certain amount. So once you figure out what that max amount is, then the rest is kind of just simple. Just, you know, being like, okay, well, I know where they're at, and I know there's no one that's going to spawn behind me, but, you know, sometimes they can, and that's something you kind of want to be careful of. Because if they spawn behind you off screen, they can come in for an attack that you probably didn't see coming unless you're preemptively, like, you're just that reflex, you know, you have those reflexes to do it. Something real quick I want to mention is why it's taking me so long to kill these guys, because I'm trying to show something off. There's a thing you can do where you parry them, like right there. If you parry them with the square attack or just any knockback parry at all, you could knock the enemies into the Gorgon head statues. Sorry. Talking so fast and choking on my own spit. You can parry them into the Gorgon heads, and then you can destroy the Gorgon head just for free without doing like the 3 hits or whatever it takes for the gauntlet to kill it. Whoa. So yeah, there's that. Parry is a big thing here, and using the harpies as good parry material in the beginning is also pretty effective. That I did earlier. I just, you know, went for them, tried to kill as many as I could. And luckily, there's not too many harpies that spawn in that room, but there is like a good amount of satyrs that do spawn, as you saw. And that's the main issue, is just how many they are. But if you rely mostly on parries, you should be fine. And yeah, at this point, I recommend upgrading the gauntlet to level 3. That way, you just have it full on blast, so you can break those Gorgon head statues. And then on top of that, you're definitely going to want it to be level 3 before you start finding, like, you know, more Cyclops in the Minotaur sections, because those are going to hurt. And Gauntlet, thankfully, comes in handy. But, yeah, so magic is something that, you know, you can use all you want, really. But I recommend if you're going to be using magic, just try to save it for, like, fights that are coming up like this, like Cyclops fights. I wouldn't worry too much about the Minotaur fights with magic. I mean, well, maybe having a few would not be too bad, but I recommend at least for the Cyclops rooms to have magic. Just at least some. Just enough to have an Efreet shot, because, you know, you definitely want to get those iframes, and then on top of that, you definitely want to have at least something that could be like an AoE that can destroy armor if there's multiple Cyclops that happen to spawn at once and you don't want to use the gauntlet, or if you're having trouble. Especially like in a room like this where it's just incredibly tiny. It's kind of helpful to have at least, you know, a nice big magic stomp to kind of take them out. And of course, you know, whenever things get too troublesome, Charon's Mask does work wonders, especially when you leveled up even higher. It does work wonders in stunning enemies and stuff. So it's a really nice kind of like, you know, a timeout for enemies, so to speak. But yeah, I'd recommend for the harpies here, I just suggest using the blades. Go for the square hit, and then grab immediately after you hit them with the square attack. That way you just get the free grab attack and don't have to deal with their crap. But yeah, so I kind of misaligned my shot there, as you can see. I do eventually get like a better shot in, but here's why I decide, you know, there's too many Cyclopses on screen. I can't do it in a room like this. I'm not going to deal with like Gauntlet stuff. Even though Gauntlet is perfectly, really, like, it's just really good against the Cyclopses. The reason why I don't recommend using it in this small room is because I feel like you can get yourself easily caught up in like the charge attacks, and if you're not quick enough to dodge or, you know, break out of your attacks, these two guys, because it's such a small room, they could easily kind of get like some hits on you, clip you, and it would be fun to have. So blades, I feel like, are a lot easier and just a little bit more accessible in getting some nice cheap range hits. That's kind of what I'm going for. I'm just doing as much as I can to kind of just do slight damage and then go in and go for the kill. Gauntlet is great against them. I'll keep repeating that, of course. Gauntlet is great against them. And if you know, really want to go through this faster, then Gauntlet is great. But, however, Gauntlet is, in my opinion, not that good against, like, harpies and stuff. Yes, it can kill them, you know, faster than your blades probably could, but it's probably, in my opinion, at the very least, easier and a little bit faster to kind of go for a blade attack into grab instead of doing like Gauntlet attack into grab. I mean, you could get away with it, yeah, but, you know, yeah. So, something else about magic, too, is like magic is very scarce in Chains of Olympus. That's just how it is. Typically, in most God of Wars, you'd at least get like 75% of your magic back from just one magic chest. But in a game like Chains of Olympus, that's not the case. But the thing is, the satyrs, you know, they tend to show up, and with them in tow, they basically, yeah, see that guy there who spawned behind me? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you know, watch your back. You know, break the first 2 Gorgon heads, and then go, you know, back to the main door to make sure you kill off any guys that spawn behind you. But yeah, satyrs do spawn magic on kill, and that's pretty helpful. So you do get some magic back, you know, near the end, of course. But it's just one of those things where you definitely want to kind of save it for like very specific fights that you know you're probably going to struggle with, just in case. And then, you know, every once in a while, if you want to use a Charon to kind of stop a fool from trying to hit you, or just whatever, just try to get some breathing room, then that also, you know, kind of comes in handy too. But yeah, so I wouldn't rely too much on pairing the satyrs into the Gorgon heads. I mean, you're probably just better off just breaking like a couple of them, running back here into a safe spot without having to deal with the ones, you know, way up there. It just makes it a bit easier to kind of have this entire just small space to yourself that you can kind of just, you know, hunker down in and just not deal with crap. That's my sort of pro tip, I guess you could call it, or I wouldn't really call it a pro tip, but yeah. Gauntlet does work great against them. Again, you know, it's very powerful against them. It's just that for me, I feel like the square parry is just a better option. I feel like it just has great knockback. You know, it's just quick, it's powerful, and it just gets the job done, especially with level 5 blades. But yeah, you see right there, like, he's off screen. I can't exactly tell what he's doing. This is not Devil May Cry. You know, these guys are going to be attacking you off screen, and it's just unfortunately something that's going to happen. And that's kind of what I'm trying to stay back here to prevent from happening. Is I'm trying to prevent like the camera from getting me screwed over. So that's kind of the best tip for that I can give you. And I also wouldn't again recommend using the Gorgon statues to stone enemies, mainly because they just don't last long enough. They really don't, I feel. And I'm just kind of take some cheap shots here, so don't mind me. Something else I think I forgot to talk about was whenever you punch enemies with the gauntlet, you do get orbs out of it. You do get like I think like 1 red orb every punch. So it's not that helpful. I mean, because the way that, you know, the orbs work in the Tower of Persephone is like you're gonna get like a ton more. Also, something I want to throw out here real fast is, well, first of all, you have to do charge attacks to break armor. The first thing is first. I typically like to have the top guy spawn, and there's a way you can get him to spawn. If you go downward, the guy on top will spawn first. If you go upward, then the guy on bottom will spawn first. So whichever one you want to fight first, that's what you go for, essentially. And it does take the other guy a few seconds to spawn in, so you have plenty enough time to break armor. But sometimes, you know, it takes a bit. But yeah. Minotaurs. So double Minotaurs, this part sucks. I highly recommend using Gauntlet and going for as many dodge rolls as you can. Getting down the timing of that dodge for any other attacks, and especially that charge attack. Now, after you've killed off the first 2 Minotaurs, you have just plenty of time to go grab a health chest if you need it that bad. Unless you want to, you know, save it for the end, but you don't have to. I prefer just using it like maybe either after the satyrs or before the satyrs. So satyrs are going to spawn, keep on the gauntlet, just keep pounding them down, you know, just don't let them out of your sight, and keep at it. And again, you know, if you need a health now, you know, just save it for this. There's not too many satyrs, thankfully, but still. So once this guy's spawning out, make sure you go for at least a few punches, and the jumping thing does work. As you can see, this is what I was talking about earlier about the jumping thing. Like, just hold a specific direction and just start jumping that way when he gets close. When he gets too close. And then you can kind of just somewhat kind of, not really cheese the Minotaur, but you can kind of just make it to where they're gonna essentially charge all the time. It's not something I rely on too heavily because the charge is very dangerous and has a really strange hitbox to it that you can sometimes like get sucked into and get hit by, and it's not fun. But other than that, you know, if you're fine with dodging the charge attack, you could, in theory, make it to where the Minotaurs are just going to go for nothing but that and kind of trick them into doing it more often than not. But the thing is, with 2 Minotaurs, it's a lot harder to do that because, you know, one might be charging and the other will charge, and you jump and you get stuck and you get killed and it sucks, and yeah. So every one of these areas here are going to spawn like 2 harpies, and just, you know, parry them, grab them, whatever you... Just harpies. They're not that bad. It doesn't spawn too many. Other tips I can give for Minotaurs, especially the dual ones, is if you have magic by this point, Efreet is, you know, again, pretty strong against that type of threat, especially against armor, because it does break armor, which is nice. So something you can kind of rely on if you really needed it that bad. I'd say, you know, save your magic for that, or unless you're like me and you rather just use the magic on the Cyclops and deal with Minotaurs and their bullshit, you know, in like my own particular way, then yeah, that's something you can kind of, you know, do. And of course, Charon should work on the Minotaurs. In theory, I believe it should. Level 2, I think, lasts longer than level 1. So, yeah, they don't last that long, but hey, you know, level 2 and level 3 is much better to have on than not, so to speak. But yeah, that seems to be... Okay, no, we got one more room, that's right. We're pretty much close to the end. This is like the last room. The Minotaur fight is the absolute worst of practically all of it. And it's just... It's hard to get that timing down for how to dodge. You don't have to jump over Minotaurs, though. You can just dodge roll all the way. But yeah, so this room, I recommend using Harpies for the parry material. Whenever the Gorgons are going to, like, slump up like that, where they, you know, they crouch and they kind of curl inside themselves, that's basically them they're gonna jump at you, and when they do that, they're gonna stone you, and it's just really hard to just not get hit, especially with the Harpies in the room. But yeah, I recommend using Harpies for parry material at first, and then once they're gone, you know, then focus on the Gorgons. Gauntlet is also, again, good against them. Like, pretty damn powerful against them, but whatever you prefer to use, you know, go for that, of course. But just remember that these ones have, like, a different ability that allows them to latch onto you, and when you see them curl up like that, just make sure you know, wait for that proper time to jump, and then just jump over it and just avoid it completely, because it's really not that... It's really not that hard to avoid, thankfully. So, yeah. They're fun little enemies to fight. Next up, of course, is Cyclops. Take them out as you see fit. This room is quite small, so just keep that in mind, that you probably could get, you know, hit by things like that. And that, you know... Gauntlet works great. And blades, using them for cheap shots. I call them cheap shots, but they're not really... I guess cheap shots, I don't know. Building up combos, going for slam attacks, you know, that's kind of my name of the game that I usually tend to kind of rely on. A little too much sometimes when it comes to Cyclops fights, but it is what it is. Hold on, I'm going to zoom in here real quick. Alright, so, yeah, that knocks out that room completely. I think we're practically done-ish. Trying to think what we gotta do next. Well, open chest, so there's that. And yeah, good luck with the Gauntlet though, because it's just hard. It's a lot harder than I made it look. It really is really tough and annoying. I had to cut out, I think, like 20 minutes of just pure footage for this, just on the sake that I died so many damn times, especially in the Minotaur fights. So yeah. Alright, so the rest of this video is basically me just upgrading stuff. I think I upgrade everything to max at the end of this. I should have enough orbs. I'm not going to leave just yet. I'm going to give it like a few minutes here. A few seconds before I decide to leave, because we're getting kind of close to the end of it. Let's see. So, Charon, you know, I think it's just that in this one. So I basically have... I should have close to, if not enough, to fully level up all of them both together. So that should finish off all the upgrades. So, yeah. Next up is the final boss. So, see you guys then, and take care, everybody.